All right, guys. After a small little blunder from my end, we are actually starting episode 2 of The Fluid Voice. My name is Rod Clark, also known as Malleus Odium. Today's topic we're going to be hitting on is Transmedicalism. I think it's a crucially important topic to address. And let me introduce my co-hosts. Above me, I have the phenomenal Christy, who has a background in psychology. How are we doing this evening, Christy? How was your week?
I am doing very wonderfully, actually.
Awesome.
Thank you.
I heard you kind of had a couple issues with your computer. Were you able to get everything situated?
Most of it. There's some hardware issues still, but I can fix those.
Good,
hardware
good,
I can
good.
do. Software was the hard problem.
And then to my left, I have the phenomenal Alex, who has a background in biology. She's going to be our go-to person majorly for this topic. How are we doing tonight, Alex?
Well, it was pretty well. Unfortunately, I'm dealing with tech issues from my lack of knowledge of Restream, which I've been using. I'm like, they should be streaming live on YouTube as well as on Twitch, but it's only live on Twitch right now.
Yeah, and like I said, Alex, like we always do, you're more than welcome, of course, to use this information and use the live stream after the fact and post it on your own.
Oh yeah,
YouTube.
I can technically upload this after the fact. It's just, yeah. You know what? I'm just gonna ignore that. Deal with it later. I'm just gonna shut this off.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, like not everything, but just stop the YouTube side of streaming, just because
So
that'll mess up in my end.
Real quick, so I can finish the introductions, and then above
Sure.
Alex, we have the resident philosopher, Perfict. How are we doing tonight, Perfict? How was your week?
Week went pretty well. A little rough on the tech side, funnily enough. There we go.
All right, guys. So the reason why I think this is a very important topic to hit up is there is a specific movement going on among different spectrums of the trans community that believe that for someone to be considered transgender, they have to adopt a form of method which has been deemed transmedicalism. Now, there are pejoratives that I'm choosing not to use because I don't think they're useful in a way. But I guess, does anybody have any of their own opinions in regards to transmedicalism? And then we can approach some of the facts regarding this talking point.
Sure. So, like, there's a lot of the transsexual versus transgender. I used to read a lot when my main connection to the trans community was what was that site? The famous trans site. Whatever. I forgot the name of the site, but it's not important. The important thing is that it's very easy at the very least for me, to see how someone could delve down into transmedicalism, because I was further along down that road for a bit than I'd like to think of myself now. Because it's one of those things where I think physical dysphoria is the factor that some transgender people want to make as a distinction, like a special distinction that they need to break up the category more, and that's not necessarily helpful, and it also can limit the ability to get people who need to deal with stuff dealt with, because of the tendency of that to go towards trying to fit into the binary.
Yeah, see,
I said a lot of buzzwords without explanation, did I?
Well, we'll definitely go over that. A lot of the points that you've brought up, Alex. So I just want to be very precise here. So I personally have done my own videos relating to the topic of transmedicalism. Like for me, as a layman, I'm not anywhere near as versed in biology as I should be. But I take my definitions, I take on what is characterized as being transgender based on the expertise in the field, the medical professionals, the scientific community, so on and so forth. Now, I've heard this counter-made to me that a lot of people regard this as kind of like an appeal to an authority, but realistically, what else am I, as a layman, I mean, what's your opinion on this? Like, what do you think would be an appropriate way to make this determination myself? Is it to just come up with a hypothesis based on my own reading, or is it fair to make a basis of what it means to be trans based on the experts? I mean, what's your opinion on that, Christy or Alex?
I think basically, I will go mostly with what the trans people, with what other trans people say about themselves. I don't think it's my place in a lot of ways to tell people how to be trans. How I went through it is different from how other people went through it. I know we were trying to be very, very scientific about it, but I think what actually made me start thinking about it in the first place was my mom visited for the first time, and her friend kept calling me by my old name, and I said, "This is my name now," and she said, "I will call you that, and I'll call you she when the process is finished." I'm like, I came out. That is the finish of the process. Everything else is just window dressing.
Yeah, and
So,
I think this is actually something I actually wanted to ask Perfict on, because Perfict you're pretty versed in philosophy. There is a portion of philosophy in regards to identity. Is that correct?
Yes, there.
Would you mind sharing, like, as far as your knowledge goes, like, what is the philosophical standpoint when it comes to identity? Like I said, as much as you know.
Well, I'm not sure how much of philosophy's identity is going to be applying here, but basically, the individual is the expert on their own identity until you have enough evidence to prove other.
Would Alex and Christy, do you guys agree with that similar characteristics that Perfict just put out?
oh yeah, that's what I was just trying to say. Really, I just said it in the long form.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. See,
But
go ahead, Perfict, please.
I think that the large part of the confusion is that people are getting their term messed up. You start things to separate it. If you start calling it biogender and sociogender to make a distinction between them, even the statements that people make no sense when they're saying that they are trying to judge people's sociogender by their bi.
And to be fair, Perfict, I've seen certain individuals conflate, and this is on both sides of the discussion, conflate biological sex, for example, with gender. Generally we understand there's that distinction, but the important factor is, this is again from my perspective, it seems like a lot of individuals who make this conflation don't understand, and I'm not saying they don't generally, just maybe there needs to be better explained to them, or maybe it needs to be, someone just needs to have a chat with them, that when it comes to someone's identity, it's intrinsic to themselves. So, for example, when I say, for example, that I'm a veteran because, of course, I served in the military, but I don't consider myself a veteran after the fact, strictly because of my service, because I also have a shared interest intrinsically to this community. So as a veteran, that's one of the aspects. And I would say the same thing applies in regards to the trans community. It's that shared experience that we all have relating to the experiences we have regarding our own our own identity regarding gender. I mean, do you guys agree or disagree with that framing?
That sounds about.
I think I agree with the framing in general, but I can also see how some of that framing is part of how part of why transmedicalism started, because going through surgery is another step. So a lot of people split themselves off further because of that. Now, obviously there are a lot of other problems, but I can see how that happened, but I disagree with the general attitude behind it. I don't think it's helpful for longevity. I think it's almost like they've Stockholmed into a binary because they're trying to do everything to get rid of the physical dysphoria. I mean, that's the impression I have, partially from my own experience.
Yeah, see, I've kind of gotten the same jest that a lot of people that adhere to the notions of transmedicalism, they do so because they're trying to find general acceptance toward others that may not empathize with the situation or their experience. I don't know, maybe, do you guys think that's a possible incorrect viewpoint, or?
I think the idea of acceptance among the general populace can easily lead to transmedicalism. Because I have to have breasts in order to pass to this random person. I have to have my face redone because my forehead's too high, or a lot of it's personal transmedicalism, and which I understand a little bit more. I mean, for myself, I'm a transmedicalist. For everybody else, I'm not. If that makes any sense at all.
I think I kind of understand the sentiments.
I'm going through all the process, but that's by my choice, and if other people don't want to do that, that's their choice as well. The idea of acceptance. The other night I was wearing a very tight top, and I had my jacket just zipped up, and my you can see my formation, and yet I was still surd. And if you get that to the point of really hating on the idea of self, then that can lead to, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this. I even came back and I texted someone, I'm going to put more effort into passing, which I regret saying, because that's not really the point of being trans. It's the point of being trans is being comfortable within yourself. So I don't know if any of that made sense.
It absolutely does make sense, and I think that goes into the main topic of the individual's experience of their identity, and I think it's incredibly important regarding how an individual looks at themselves relating to such identity. If not, how would you ever discover yourself? How would you ever know who you truly are unless you're willing to express that in your own unique way? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess so we can hit this off because I think this is going to be important, but I want to address some of the points that generally is what considers to be a transmedicalist viewpoint. I contacted a couple people willing to see if they would be able to come into the discussion. Unfortunately, none of them replied, but I'm going to try to stillman their positions correctly as possible. If anybody here has heard an alternative, including in chat, feel free to hit me up and I will happily address them. But as far as I understand what transmedicalists we believe, that you must have some form of suffering relating to their experience. So they have to have some form of animosity toward their own biological mechanisms regarding to be considered trans. Now, that's kind of like where. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, see, I don't like the framing of that. I like just in terms of animosity, or maybe that's why I never fully ended up transmedicalist, because it was just unpleasant feeling, but not the animosity. Because I know, now I'm remembering group therapy and why I hated that.
Yeah, see, I don't know if animosity is a good enough word to describe that their point. It's maybe a hatred is a word, but I think that's a little bit too strong. Maybe a dislike or of course, dysphoria is a word that would clearly define that too. But it's some form of negative response toward their biological characteristics. And this is not to say that these people do not have these situations, of course, but my confliction when it comes to the transmedicalist viewpoint comes from two facets. One is, again, as a layman, I have to look at through the lens of a layman with regards to the medical and psychological professionals out in the field. And when I see how I see how they define what it means to be trans, it's not strictly on the basis of someone physically suffering in some mannerism, even mentally suffering. It can be encompassing many different things. But again, this is a very broad umbrella term. I don't know, maybe you guys agree or disagree, or maybe want to add in.
No, I mean, you can. There, as in a lot of things, there are degrees as well. You take your most rabid transmedicalist trans person, and they decide they're never getting bottom surgery, and you go, wait, that doesn't make sense within your framework. But even they have breasts and they do good makeup, so that's where they stop. And saying everybody needs to have breasts and makeup is one of the things that some transmedicalists think. I don't. Again, I get it. But the transmedicalist ideal is to be able to pass in public. It really isn't anything more than that, and I mean, partly to be comfortable within your own skin in the mirror, I suppose. But
yeah,
I mean, I'm going.
If I can just add this real quick, Chris, because that's a very valid point. If I can just add to it, see, when it comes to the topic of non-binary individuals, from my understanding, the very notion of being transgender is you are transitioning from the gender you were assigned at birth. And because of that facet, as my understanding goes, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but a non-binary is also encompassing that definition as well, because they are no longer assuming the role that society has placed on them originally from birth to the now. That's one of the reasons why they consider themselves non-binary. Now, I mean, what is your guys' take? Am I incorrect in that?
Well, I mean, like, as someone who, at the very least, currently considers herself girl flex, which, by the way, so it just means sometimes I feel very agender. Like, I don't feel like I fit in with any gender role. And I don't mean that in a negative way. It's one of those things where, for a while, I focused on passing. And then after that, I start to focus on being myself. And being myself, I don't really know what gender I am all the time. But, I mean, sometimes I feel like no gender, and sometimes I feel like a woman. Depends on the day. But that's...
Well, real quick, if I can just ask this real quick, Alex, would that be where the different topics come up of the different characterizations on regards to other individuals' identity regarding gender? Like, you have people that consider themselves pangender, I don't know. I'm not gonna try to put out a bunch of lists of different characterizations because I think I would not do justice. But is that kind of like the facet where some individuals consider themselves not in the strictly non-binary field? Maybe they're gender fluid, so on and so forth, like that.
Yeah. Well, maybe some people. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, girl flex is gender fluid between agender and woman. And there's like a similar one for between agender and men, sort of swapping between, and it's easy to, or at the very least, it's easy for me to just, I don't know, it's easy to not really feel like any gender something. I don't know. I'm not doing the best job at explaining this necessarily, but
I think one of the complications, and I think you guys agree with me on this, is because our identities are so unique based on all our individual experiences, that it sometimes is hard to accurately communicate to someone how we express ourselves in such identity. Would you guys agree with that, or?
Yeah, I'm very binary, but I'm not always very binary, which is much what Alex was saying. Or, not. I may have misunderstood. There are days I say, oh, I just don't feel I don't feel the girl thing today.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just want to just relax and not having to just keep your mind free, don't have anything like in your Go ahead.
The thing is, like, today I feel way more girly than I do some days. So, like, today, like, I feel very much a woman, and some days I'm just like, whatever. You know what gender I feel like? Martial arts. No, it's agender, really, but, like, it just feels so... Everything I feel feels so separate from what any sort of gender means sometimes. Like what's associated with any gender sometimes.
Yeah.
So real quick, so I want to be able to give everyone fair time. So far, what you've been hearing, Perfict. I know you really haven't gone through this being cis yourself. So based on like what you've heard so far, what is your unique? Do you have any takes or perspective regarding the discussion so far?
Well, I agree. There are some people who are inside, who are doing essentially gate, and that they're saying you have to, in order to count as, for them to count you as being trans, you have to have had a journey. You have to have transitioned from something to something else and had a journey that was part of that. Or that they don't... They're not trying to say that you have to punish on the... But you have to have...
You're cutting out a lot.
A tail
Real,
that goes with it. It has to have been... It has to have been a hard journey. You have to have had a journey. They had a hard journey. You have to have a hard journey in order to be where they are.
Let me make
and
sure.
that's a certain amount of gatekeeping. And there's other people who are outside the trans community say, well, how am I supposed to be able to tell? If you aren't going to throw out the right signals, how am I supposed to be able to tell?
So let me make sure, like, because you were breaking up a little bit, Perfict, and it could be just a lag on our ends, or it could be on your. It doesn't know. We don't know. So let me make sure, like, you can just say yes or no. Make sure I'm still manning you here correctly. But basically, what you're saying is that you're seeing a forms of gatekeeping on different positions regarding this discussion, and that is that kind of correct so far? What you were emphasizing?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
That would be it.
What do you guys
doing
think?
better on the lag then?
I think I mean, I know he was lagging out, but what do you guys think? Do you guys generally think that's kind of the case as well, Christy and Alex?
Oh, sure. I mean, I went through dysphoria for ages, and that I didn't know was dysphoria. I mean, I've known I'm trans for many, many years, but I put it out of my head. But one of my two best friends who's trans, she just knew she was a girl, and that was that. And I don't find her any less trans than I am. Is kind of, I think, if I seem to have been taking the transmedicalist viewpoint, and that isn't how I approach it. We have a non-binary person in the house as well, and that took me a little bit to get used to. It's just because it's hard to wrap around, but I get it. So I get it now. It's not in a intellectual way. I don't think you can put it in an intellectual way. It just hit my lizard brain, and my lizard brain's fine.
So real quick, I'm going to address one of the comments. So Radical and Rhetoric and Discourse. Hello, Rhetoric and Discourse in chat. Welcome everyone who's also in chat. It says that, oh no, audio issues. Yeah, I think we were having a little bit of a lag spike there, Rhetoric. So hopefully it's getting fixed by that time. So I also want to mention we're going to be, in about 5 minutes, we're going to be coming up to our portion of the call-in of the show. So what we're going to be doing is, if you are interested in joining our conversation, we would welcome you to address any questions we've hit so far. If you are a transmedicalist, we'd love to hear from you regarding this topic. We'll be able to pull you into the discussion, and after you pose your questions and hear our objections or our positions, then I would just ask you to just part ways from there on your own accord, is the way how we have this set up. So again, if you are interested, feel free to contact either me or Perfict, and we'll be happy to coordinate with this. So, but to continue on until we get more people. So I guess when it comes to this, and I want to make sure I understand this. So for me, like I'm kind of like, I don't know what the term is. I heard ContraPoints mention baby trans. I don't know if that's pejorative. I don't want to use it because I don't want to. But I
don't even know. I didn't pay much attention to the community until like a year ago. So.
Yeah, so like the only reason what I'm saying is, see, that's one of the reasons why I think this is an important topic, not only for the general audience but also for myself, because I just started my HRT not too long ago, so I'm kind of like doing, so I'm also going through my experience, and I guess one of the things that strengthens my own experience is that I have a very fortunate opportunity to speak to two great individuals such as Alex and you, Christy, relating to your experiences. And I can have that shared experiences that, in my opinion, strengthens me. But I'm just being honest. So to me, this is kind of like a form of my own therapy, other than, of course, my times talking to my mental health professional at the VA. But this kind of like strengthens my resolve on bettering myself and understanding this perspective from different ways, if that makes any sense.
Well, first of all, welcome. It's baby trans or baby bird or hatchling is all correct for where you are.
None
of them are pejorative.
For baby bird for me.
Yeah, I try to avoid.
I said actual Jake ruined the term baby bird for me.
Oh.
Well, baby bird also just implies a neediness.
Well,
yeah, that's one of the reasons why I'm kind of like I try not to use labels until I have a clear distinction from other individuals that it's not a pejorative or it's not a negative connotation or a disrespect to them. So that's why I'm very cautious when it comes to that, because I just try to show respect as much as possible. You know what I mean?
Oh, it's all of them are fine as long as you define yourself. I call myself a bird in flight once I started HRT. So
just as long as you don't start shouting out the T slur.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So real
Rhymes
quick,
with Granny.
So, I'm going to address some of the comments that we've gotten so far. This is a great way we can get a little bit of feedback from people in chat. So, Rhetoric in Discord goes, I am cooking dinner. That's cool. And then he goes, if I'm done, I would love to. And then he writes, Sarah Michelle says that you can't be trans unless you have diagnosed dysphoria. And that's a good, so I'm going to give my perspective in relation to my experience to this individual. I'm not going to try to be disingenuous, or at least try to show as much respect as I can. But I disagree with Sarah Michelle. I've had an exchange with her for nearly a year now regarding to her position of transmedicalism. The reason why I disagree with her position comes from two different posits. You can see this on my channel. I actually have an entire video on my positions of why I disagree with her. From my perspective, being a layman, I don't accept transmedicalism because it completely pushes away other individuals on their identity regarding to their experiences. Someone can become gender dysphoric through different means other than just going pure dysphoria. So an example of that is there's something called sexual dysfunction. I actually read into this. An individual can start off with sexual dysfunction and eventually leads up to gender dysphoria. But when it comes to legalities, when it comes to protections, when it comes to their identity, if we are gatekeeping these individuals from getting the attention they need, either social field or in regards to the professional fields, like medical or professional health, psychiatric or whatever, then in my opinion, it would be incredibly harmful. But maybe I'm wrong, but that's just my perspective. That's the number one reason. The second reason comes from the extreme versions of transmedicalism. A lot of people don't know this, but Iran, in countries like Iran and Pakistan, practice a form of transmedicalism. I think I brought this up in last week's show. But basically how it works is, in Iran, if you're homosexual, if you're a part of the LGBT community, they consider that a mental illness. And because they consider it a mental illness, they force people to transition outside of who they are. They force their identity, what they consider to be mental illness, onto other people. So it's a form of transmedicalism. And I've conveyed this many times, and this is why I understand what their viewpoints are, but this is why I disagree. But hopefully that addresses what Rhetoric was asking. But do you guys have any opinions on this individual?
For one, not an opinion here. I am blocked by Sarah Michelle. I'm not 100% why. I've only had one argument with her, although I did say that essentially I did have a brief argument, which may be the reason I blocked, so I maybe kind of know. But also, one of the problems with the super extreme transmedicalism is when it goes and when it's so focused on going through the long ass process of dressing up, living as a woman full time for months before you can get HRT, which is one of the things that I struggled the most with, because I just want gender confirming surgery. I still want gender confirming surgery. I didn't even care that much about the HRT. Now that being said, the HRT was one of those things that I didn't know that I needed. It's just with such a focus on gendered attitudes in some of the relatively extreme ends of transmedicalism, that just makes it harder for people like me to transition.
Now you went through a year of living as, because I had 6 months with my insurance where I had to live as.
So what happened was the laws changed in Minnesota, and I found a place that could do it by consent, and that's how I ended up on HRT. I wasn't able to get HRT before that, and once I was on HRT, even then, like, I didn't live full time as a woman until like last year. So that was after like almost 2 years on HRT.
Oh.
Because I was, scared of dealing with, the issue of not passing and being forced to dress like a specific way. And
if I can just add something real quick, Alex, in regards to what you're mentioning, because I think this is important. Like, I think I shared this story with you guys last week, but I have to emphasize this. See, this is kind of like why I also have a distinction of why I have an issue with the transmedicalist viewpoint. It kind of ties in directly to what you're saying right now, Alex. I spoke to a trans veteran less than a week and a half ago, and they lived as a woman, and they identified as one for nearly 10 years. Like, it was like 10 or 15 years until like 2015, until they finally got their diagnosis for dysphoria. And this individual was there was stigma behind this individual. They were insulted, they were belittled, all because they identified of who they really were. And that's one of the things I find incredibly harmful, that this viewpoint can cause that much harm. Maybe this is, again, just a pure emotional issue for me, but I find that incredibly troubling. I don't know, what do you guys have an opinion on that?
I shaved my head just before I came out, so this my last ditch attempt to not show I was trans. I had a lot of problems with the 6-month waiting period, but it's also something I kind of wanted to do. There's a lot of things. When I say I'm transmedicalist for myself, I wanted the gatekeeping. I liked the gatekeeping because I'm someone who mentally just needs permission for things sometimes. And coming out was a very, very sudden thing, although I kind of knew for months I was going to do it.
Could I ask a question real quick, Christy, in regards to your experience? Would you mind? I promise it won't be too personal. Like, was there a time...
personal as possible.
I try to be, but I appreciate that. I'm just going to try to be respectful. When it comes to your, how long ago before you publicly identified as a woman, did you have an indicator or some form of expression from yourself that you kind of had, like, if you look back now through your memories, or if you ever had this thought process in where you saw there was something different in regards to how you lived the first half of your experience in life to the second half? Did you ever, there was that gotcha moment in where, did you ever have that, I don't know, that's a weird way to put it, but like me, I had a time.
I get it. Oh, no, please, I want to hear yours.
No, when I found that I was intersex, I had a period from 2016 until 2016 with my diagnosis with gender dysphoria, that I look back as a kid, I had a lot of mannerisms that I really didn't understand. I even talked with my mom today. She's relating to me experiences that I had as a kid that she had to correct me. I'm not going to go into too much detail because it's kind of like personal stuff, But she would share with me stuff that I did as a kid that she didn't expect. It was kind of like not abnormal, but wasn't the norm according to the tradition or religion I was belonging to at the time. And now that I'm going through this, talking to my mom, she said that it's kind of like that eureka moment. It's like, there was indicators, there was some type of prelude to this could have been the situation. Did you guys ever have a situation that came up it was kind of like similar to that, or?
I'm going to tell you an odd story, if that's all right. I recently had a talk with my high school girlfriend And she told me something that I didn't know and is not in my diaries anywhere. She said I was out in high school.
Fascinating.
And so when I said, no, I wasn't, that's insane. She said, what was your favorite outfit? And I said, well, the black leotard, the black jeans over it, kitten heels, white shirt tied around my waist, tied around my stomach. It's like, oh, well, okay. And always with the earrings, long colored earrings, and just very flamboyant. So yeah, and in 1989, my friend and I sat under a tree drinking rum and saying neither of us was ever going to come out. We promised each other. She's been out for 3 years now, not for 2.
You know, I'm not going to lie to you, Christy. I'm actually one of these, one of future episodes, I would love to hear, I think one of the topics I really want to hit up is the experience other transgender individuals had relating to prior to this change in our society regarding general acceptance of trans individuals. And I would like, that's
sure.
one, as a historian, I know a little bit about the history, like when it comes to the things that happen when it comes to just the social norms. But I would love to hear other personal experience regarding that aspects of history. So, but I don't mean to diverge the topic. It's just something I'm.
Well, just to give you an idea, and not to promote another show, but I listened to the episode of Queer Splaining that just came out yesterday, and it was about experiencing Rocky Horror for the first time, and I cried through the entire thing, or through most of it, because that was the thing that saved my life. So just to be able to be myself while I was a teen.
Yeah, is it weird that if I can just add on to this, I hadn't watched Rocky Horror Picture, I didn't watch Rocky Horror Picture Show because of my very strong religious upbringing and other circumstances, but I didn't really watch it until 2012. And then brother, but here's the astounding thing, Christy, and this is going to shock a lot of people here. I'm going to be honest, that when I asked my brother to come along with me to go watch Rocky Horror Picture Show, this is before I came out in regards to my identity now. He was like, "You want to go watch what movie?" And he was like, because it was just, it was a very one of those type of moments. So I guess just to give everyone a chance to ring in, Alex and Perfict, do you guys have any takes in regards to what's been discussed so far?
Well, I was going to say there are a couple of things, random thoughts I have about the past. One, I'm not sure 100% if it qualifies. I might have to ask Christy if that's common. I was understanding that most people learn their gender first and don't really learn the other gender for a bit in terms of first words.
I actually agree with that.
Yes, that is mostly the case.
I learned both genders.
I was told that it was very hard to teach me to pee standing up.
Really early on, yeah. I can't remember if it was hard to teach me to pee standing up.
This is something my mom told me over the years, especially when I had company.
I know I had both boy and girl as first words, some of the very first words learned. I learned both genders. I was under this understanding that the gender of other people is generally takes a little bit longer, not super much longer, but whatever. I get the impression that I was corrected as a child and said the wrong thing, or what my parents considered the wrong thing a bunch. And then obviously, that I've talked about a few times is Ronmo and half. because the main character of the manga gets falls into a cursed pool of a drowned girl or whatever, and swaps between male and female essentially. And depending on like cold water switches to female, and Formar switches back. And like I read in middle school, and I was like, definitely fantasized about only dealing with cold water for the rest of my life after that happened.
Well,
cold everything.
I know I mentioned this fairly often, and I probably did on this show last week. But the only thing that I could find in my diaries that was very specific to it, all my Rocky Horror experiences are not in my diaries, and I don't know why. But around 11, because I started, I'm one of those people who started growing breasts first, just before puberty. My diary says my body is trying to fix itself.
Real quick, so I want to give everyone equal time, and like I said, it's very important.
Yeah,
Perfect. So perfect. So far, like, what do you like? Do you have any perspectives on this? Perfect. So what so far that's been discussed?
Well, only the perspectives I was offering on the actual the words regarding it, and the other people's perspectives on it. You know, if you're not putting out enough signals, how am I supposed to know? And those sorts of questions. I've looked into the arguments, and I haven't found any really good arguments for the trend. They all center around, if you just brush off the rhetoric, if you just get to separating, there's the trans, or it's not really sexuality, but you get rid of the gender and the biology. That you have sociology and biology, and art.
So
when somebody's saying, in order to be recognized,
go ahead, Perfect.
I must be lagging.
Yeah, it's okay, Perfect. But I think we generally, I mean, I'm pretty sure everyone that can hear you generally understood what you're getting at. That regarding like from your research, you see, I want to make sure I'm not trying to use cis or Perfect as our cis token here, but this is actually a really important thing though. Like, I would say that a lot of people, if they're willing to be honest in regards to this discussion of the transmedicalist argument, that a lot of individuals will see it, the transmedicalist viewpoint, as not being a strong argument. And I generally, I understand that perspective too. And I guess the key factor regarding this is that when it comes to the actual positions that they're making a claim. Like, if we look at this as a skeptic or as an empirical way, they have a claim that they make that their criteria to be considered trans has to meet a certain criteria. That's a claim. They have to provide some form of justification to such claim. And is that kind of like where you're kind of at, Perfect?
Well, I'm saying that they're making the claim, they're saying things like, you wrote about a person and shared that with us, where they were expressing transgender as a person who underwent reassignment due to a diagnosis of dysphoria. And if you put that down as socio-transgender is a person who underwent a physical, medical, bio-reassignment due to a diagnosis of biodysphoria, it doesn't make sense.
Does everyone understand?
Yeah, I absolutely do.
So I generally agree too. So that's a great take, Perfect. See, this is one of the reasons why it's such great to have different perspectives in relation to this topic. I also want to real quick, out of respect to our listeners and our viewers, they had a comment written by Rhetoric again. He asked, could I ask everyone's opinion on transgenders? So anybody want to hit up that first?
Oh, fuck. It's not a thing. Some people in their in early puberty will sometimes play around with gender and gender expression, and that is fine. The other people have more of the drive that what, and I'm speaking strictly psychologically now. Playing around with gender is a common thing, and a lot of parents freak out about it, but don't. The feeling of the wrong gender, whether it's dysphoria or it's just I know I am this, then that's not a playing around with gender expression, and those are the people, and those people should be listened to. And sometimes playing around with gender expression is how we find out. I mean, like I said, my favorite outfit in high school. I forgot to mention the kitten heels.
No, you did not. You mentioned the kitten heel.
Oh, I did? Okay, good. And I wore fishnets under my jeans a lot.
Important detail.
The important detail. But I don't think I would have called myself trans back then, but this was in the late 70s and early 80s, so all I knew is I wasn't who I was.
So I guess the big question I should ask is, what is your take on trans trenders, either Alex or Perfict, as far as you guys possibly know?
It's not a real thing. So I mean, it's under the attitude of we are aware of transgender people more and the diversity of that. So because we're aware of it more, it makes it seem like more people who are acting themselves. It makes it seem like there are more people who are transgender, but more likely, more people are just comfortable being themselves because society has gotten, at the very least, a little bit socially better, and so that can make it easy to fall into the sort of, oh, it's a new trend thing, when most of this stuff is not new.
And what about you, Perfict? I mean, how much, how far do you know about this concept of trenders?
Well, I think that it's that the world has become smaller, that there's the internet, that trans people occupy, they aren't a high volume of the people in society. Probably a solid estimate would be 5% that are some form of trans or non-binary or so. But with the internet, they can find each other and they can find support and they can not feel alone in that. And so they're much more likely to openly embrace it as opposed to have it be something that they kind of live with. And openly embracing it has then become much more popular. It's become much more visible, and there's more people doing it, which I view as being all positive things.
Yeah, and see, for me,
socially, that's not bad.
Yeah, and I kind of see, and from my perspective in history, I don't consider it a real thing, and here's why. If I look, I look through what I know in regards to my slight expertise when it comes to history. We know historically there have been many characteristics of many cultures all around the world before they were all interconnected regarding concept of a third sex, which, of course, that's not really a thing. But when it comes to a third gender, a lot of these cultures did derive these notions. For example, in places like China, eunuchs were considered a non-binary or a third gender. They, of course, they were forced to in this position, but that's how they were relegated in that society. Then you had spirit folk in Polynesian cultures that had these trends of not be considered a part of the binary gender that generally is perceived in Western culture. And then you had Native American societies that also have this notion of spirit folk that have the same indications. Like there are actual books that I'm going to try to, if anybody wants them, that I can source to them that show the different types of this notion throughout cultures, throughout history for thousands of years. This isn't a new thing, but I completely agree with the sentiments that Perfict puts out. Because transgender individuals are more prominent on social media, because they have a louder voice, because they have a place that they can unify, can speak on, it gives us a more vocal presence in societies in general. And I think that's where a lot of people think that this is actually a fad, that there are more, that because this appearance didn't really happen because of the internet. I don't know, maybe I have just a bad take. Does anybody disagree or?
No, and I want, give me a second. My eyes are going to wander for a minute because there's something I want to read to you.
Of course, please.
So I have to actually I have to find it. Apologies.
Real quick, while you're finding that real quick, I just want to say this. If trenders were a real thing, then that is one of the longest trends ever in history. That's all I have to say. Historically, remember, the term trend means a short-term event encompassing a fad or something around those lines.
Right. It's short-term compared to the history of the entire planet Earth.
Yes, it is. If you want to do it by that definition, I guess it would apply. But if you go through the lens of humanity in a historical context, again, that would be the longest trend in history, and that is an extraordinary claim, and I would apply Hitchens' razor regarding that claim. But yeah, but go ahead, Christy. I apologize.
Oh no, I still have to. Oh, here it is. Okay, I need the cropped version. Okay, this is somebody on Twitter, and this is while I was very much struggling. I came across somebody who wrote, "Here are some things I thought about myself pre-transition. They may be familiar to you. I am too old. I am too ugly. I am too fat. I'm too bald. My body is the wrong shape. I'm not really trans. No one will ever want to date me again." All of them turned out to be wrong. And I wrote back to her, I have every one of these thoughts. And she wrote, "I have some good news for you then." And that exchange changed my life.
And I think that's one of the important. If I can just add to that real quick, Christy, and I think that's one of the important factors of being able to share our experiences from every different perspective relating to you, me, Alex, Perfict, regarding this phenomenon, because it's incredibly important that other people's perspective relating to many topics, especially when it comes to the trans community. Because, like I said, and this is my own personal take, but I think this is one of the biggest ways that we can help promote, not a unity, but promote the general well-being of all transgender individuals, no matter who they are, because that shared experience is going to fortify that they can thrive and exist through this hardship that they may or may not experience. And I think that fortification is incredibly important. But again, that's just my position on that. So.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm sitting here crying now, so I'll be with you in a minute.
I mean,
I'm
it's
sorry,
easy.
Christy.
Well, I mean, not to be mean, but Christy did it to herself.
Yes,
No,
I did.
But no, Christy, I appreciate you sharing that, and that's
Yeah,
for me,
no,
when
I
hear
appreciate that too.
And real quick, if I can just say this, when I hear something like that, that's when, I don't know if you remember our discussion we had when we first met, Christy. That's kind of like the same connotations that I had with this. Like I'm bracing for a full experience myself of what it in regards to this identity. But for me, when I was told this by this individual who experienced this for 20 years, it shook me to my core. It hurt me because I can't imagine living your life who you are for your entire being, and then finally finding some form of justification for your identity, for all of a sudden, then you have this backlash of individuals against this community. And, you know, it's like they experienced it in the real world. Now they're experiencing it in the digital world. And it's like there's no not forgiveness isn't the wrong word. There's no lifting this burden off of them. They can't just be who they are. You know what I mean? And I think that's one of the most troubling facets for me regarding what's going on today on social media and across the internet. But again, that's my take.
But on the other hand, what Kiva said to me really, I mean, just that one line it blew my mind. It was very weird, but that was my permission almost.
My story involving that was far less interesting. It was having a friend who had the I can't remember if she had the DSM-3 or the DSM-4.
And this is before they changed gender GID to from not being no longer.
Yeah, I was diagnosed originally with gender identity disorder.
Fascinating.
I was diagnosed under the DSM-4 originally, and then essentially been upgraded to the DSM-5 version. Yeah, because I mean, like, the DSM-5 was 2012, 2011, somewhere around there, and I was diagnosed in 2010. Like, I knew about gender dysphoria. It's like really close to the DSM-5. But yeah, no, my story is I didn't like dealing with this stuff. I don't like dealing with male stuff down there or anywhere sexually. And so sex wasn't an option for me, like in the stereotypical sense, between me and my girlfriend. So, because dysphoria down there was, and still is, like, it's always been terrible. So,
real quick, Alex, if I can just add on to that, just ask a question. Does that kind of like tap into what I mentioned earlier regarding this dysfunction? Like, some individuals have this issue when it comes to, like, was your experience? I'm not trying to get too personal if you don't want to mention it, and that's completely fair. But I just want to.
I have no shame.
Okay.
Sometimes.
Okay. I just want to be respectful. I just want to be respectful. But so my question is, like I mentioned earlier, I read about this in a couple things, and I'll be happy to bring that to show you to you guys. But there was an explanation how some people experience dysfunction, sexual dysfunction, and that led up to them becoming dysphoric. Or they became trans at that point. Was that your case, or was it like the opposite? Like,
no, essentially. Well, I mean, what's your definition of dysfunction?
No, so sexual dysfunction is far. How about this, Christy? Since you know a portion of psychology, can you relay, like, as far as your knowledge goes, of what sexual dysfunction is, if you know?
Essentially, the way I understand it, both personally and from the literature, is having a detachment from your parts. And this is something I certainly went through. There's only one way for me to perform sexually, and it's having a detachment from your parts, which the song "Detachable Penis" is running through my head now, and I can't really think straight.
Okay, so
Dirty mind, Christy.
If it's that, I didn't know if it was like, I didn't know if it was something, because sexual dysfunction sounds to me like not being, or individuals with penises not being able to get erections or something like that.
See, so as far as my reading goes, like I actually have a document that I pulled up, but sexual dysfunction, according to what I'm seeing here, is, again, if I'm incorrect, I'm welcome anyone to correct me later after the live stream. I'm up to any form of correction. But as far as what I'm reading here is, sexual dysfunction means someone cannot adequately function in that situation, be it because of their situations like Christy mentioned in regards to genitalia, when it comes to situations of being like unable to perform with a partner, or because they may have something psychological or mental regarding their inability to perform. There's many different things that fall under.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'll just be clear. I always dissociate from psychologically dissociate from just about every aspect of my body that I could, which takes a lot of mental effort, by the way.
Yes.
But especially down there. So in that sense, yes. Let me get too personal to levels of awkwardness. I didn't end up in a relationship till I was 21 because I didn't put any effort to try to get into a relationship. But I didn't learn to. I had to teach myself how to dissociate and masturbate, because I didn't masturbate until then, because it was that disturbing, and just instinctually didn't want to deal with down there.
Yeah, what it sounds like, Alex, is that you had the possible, you had a confliction with your identity first, and then it led to a possibility of this other secondary event that occurred when it comes to the dysfunction. Does that sound pretty fair? Like one thing led to another. Would you say that probably was the case?
Yeah. Because there's no way for me to dissociate enough if I was to perform like any sort of sexual activity past a certain point. That and reading, I can't remember if it was a DSM-3 or the DSM-4, and eventually being like, well, this is probably what I am, but I'm not sure, so I went through like way too much effort because I've got no self-confidence, I've got confidence now, but I didn't have any. I had even less self-confidence than I have right now, significantly less, and felt the need for a diagnosis by a psychologist. So it was a while before I went to the Center for Sexual Health, which is briefly mentioned in Silence of the Lambs, because part of that takes place in Minnesota. Sorry, that's a really random fact there. Where in the book, they're like mentioned several times that Buffalo Bill is not trans. He is a trender, and
well, this is gonna question. I'm not gonna try to, because it kind of types into this topic of transgender. So again, I want to make sure that I have my own opinions on this, but I want to hear everyone's perspective. So I hear this conversation in regards to certain labels regarding the trans community, and I do understand that they're incredibly harmful, and I want to make sure that I get everyone's opinion in regards to these labels. So is the term, again, I'm not using this toward anyone, and I don't generally agree with using this term, but is the term transvestite considered a pejorative in the sense? Okay.
Yeah, these days it's too it's old person language.
And I want to make clear, I don't agree. I don't ever will use that myself, but I'm going to ask just for general, because I think it ties into this notion of transgender, because I think like I hear a lot of people that make these talking points in support of this notion of trenders, and they use this same form of vocabulary. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's from what I'm seeing.
I think I get the impression that I hear it more from British people. I could be wrong there. The word transvestite, I feel like you hear more from British people.
Well, from British turfs. I mean,
Yeah.
the proper term, even in the 80s, was crossdresser and cross-dressing, and you could be a cross-dresser and not be trans, or you could be a cross-dresser as a way to perform perform identity. But the term is way outdated. It's from the 30s, 20s. Sorry, it's from the 1920s.
Yeah, as far as my understanding goes, it comes from the word of transferring your clothing, and that's not what a transgender individual is, because it's our identity. But I think Perfict, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I think it's describing. I mean, if it was about or surrounding transgender people, that would be, kind of a dismissive or even pejorative. It's about a condition where people they use in their sexual arousal is dressing as the other gender, and it is a thing. It is an issue, and I mean it's something that's worthy of discussion. It's not a case, but it. I mean, because cross-dressing is something people might do, just something they do. That's something that they like doing, or even it can rise to a level of compulsion that they feel they need to do. But when you say transvestite, that's of their sexual proclivities.
I will say something to that, which is that part of the problem with adjectives, even using that description, it does have the tendency to fall towards or it has the possibility to lean towards the transmedicalist adjective, because here's the thing: if you have a shitty time enough, it's going to be really enjoyable to be yourself. And sometimes when you get really relaxed, all of a sudden you get aroused. So it is possible to end up getting aroused and then feeling, because if that view of things gets used too much, it's very easy for people who are just trying to be themselves and just figure themselves out might think that being transgender is off the table because they're just like a transvestite, or worse, if you follow the turf logic of gynecophilia, whatever the hell the
Autogynephilia.
Thank you.
Which is bullshit. Just gonna throw that out there.
So I think with that, I think we've covered the topic of transgender, and I think Rhetoric had to go. But appreciate the questions, Rhetoric. If you watch it at a later time, I appreciate everyone's feedback on that question. I guess since we don't have, I guess I'm gonna ask real quick over chat. But hey, Perfict, are you seeing anybody in the call-in section, the Discord?
No.
Okay, no problem. So we're just continue on. So this is the segment, like we always do, in regards to topics that everyone feels like they want to bring up. And if you don't have one, that's fair, because I really asked from our previous meeting. But are there any topics any of you guys feel that need to be addressed? I know we were talking about 3 potential topics in regards to trans representation, trans experience. I think we've tied in a lot, and we've talked a little bit about each of those in regards. Go ahead.
Except for trans representation.
Yeah, we really. So I think if you guys want to bring that up, that's fine. But are there any specific topics that you guys feel like maybe over the past week that you guys have experienced, or you've seen, or you've heard about that you guys want to bring up? I mean, anybody?
Well, I know, Christy wanted to bring something up, right? Or did you want to bring it up?
I am not sure I want to bring it up. It was torturous. Okay. The rationality rules Sargon thing is what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the one you brought up.
Oh my god.
I agree.
I think he separated out a section of a talk. Stephen Woodford, Rationality Rules, separated out a section he had while talking to Sarfucking-gon, and called it "What Makes a Woman a Woman," and kind of proved he doesn't understand trans people still. Which, okay, I don't think he's being intentionally dense.
Real
but
quick,
one of
Christy,
the, I mean, the whole...
Real quick, Christy, I don't want to be rude. I want to make sure. Did everyone get a chance to watch, Perfect, did you get a chance to watch that discussion?
I think so. You
cool.
sent one to me, and I watched that. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Go ahead, please continue, Christy. I just want to make sure everyone was able to go.
Oh.
Please, I apologize.
Well, I watched only half of, or I only watched a bit of that one. I watched the previous one.
Yeah, I actually watched both. I hope you guys, I hope you and Perfict, because I don't know if you guys watched the second half like me and Christy have, but I will happily share my opinions on what I heard, Christy. And I hope you guys take my word for it. And I also welcome everyone to watch them themselves to make sure that we're saying what was said during that discussion accurately. If not, feel free to, again, hit me up personally on Twitter or whatever. And go ahead, Christy, what were you saying, though, please?
Oh, I did. I'll let you do most of this, but using the term "born in the wrong body" is actually kind of painful here and there. I get it. It's the old form of saying it, and it's one of the few ways I guess cis people can understand it. But it's so I just want to curl up when I hear that and go into a corner somewhere.
Yeah, so I'll give my take in regards to what I watched, and again, I'll be happy for anybody to correct me if I'm wrong. So I'm going to be fair here. I think that Stephen Woodford, didn't go strong enough that he could have, but I think he did a fair defense in his own way. And I'm not saying he did it very well, but to be fair, I think he did try to do a good pushback, not perfect pushback or a good strong pushback, but he did some pushback toward the rhetoric that Sargon of Akkad was putting out in regards. The thing that stuck to my mind in regards to what I'm giving an example of what I'm saying is adequate pushback is Sargon was saying that to be considered the gender of a woman, you have to be able to procreate. That was the thing that stuck out to me the most. I know you guys probably didn't watch it. So again, I welcome
I watched it through.
So you can confirm that.
That was like really early on. So I saw that part too.
Okay, so
he kept with it straight throughout, and it was just. And I'll call them by their proper I will call them male or female, out of politeness, unless it's some kind of odd pronoun. It's like fuck you. We don't need your politeness. I don't want politeness. I don't know what I want nothing of Sargon, but I've had enough of him over the years.
Yeah, but see, like if I can just real quick, so like when it came to that discussion, that's the thing that really pushed me on in regards to Sark. See, like for me, like again, I have my criticisms of Woodford when it comes to other things, but I do think that in my opinions, again, I'm probably going to get flack for this, but I think he did an adequate amount of defense on pushback on that specific point. Like, that's the thing that he kept, Sargon, or Carl Benjamin, kept putting on, is that for him, for you to be considered a woman in our societal roles, you have to be able to procreate. And it's like, and then Woodford kept going, well, if that was the case, what do you apply toward women who were like could not have children. Like there are women in society that you would label them every facet of woman, but they can't procreate, they can't have children. And he kept pushing back in that way, and it wasn't strong enough in my opinion, but I think it was adequate. I don't know, maybe I'm being a little bit too soft on Woodford. I don't know.
I'm going to say I'm going to be canceled for this too, but I actually think he did as good a job as what he understands could do.
Okay, well, with very little fear of being canceled, I haven't watched the video. I just checked it out, and I watched the other one, the first one with the thing in the milkshake, but I haven't watched this one. But simply that argument falls apart because then to be a man, you would have to be able to participate in procreation as a man, and how much medical science would you be allowed to use? With a low sperm count, could we use artificial insemination? In which case, everyone, including women, could count as men, because I can create a sperm, your DNA, as a woman, and it's a female baby.
So let me make sure I still hear you correctly. So what you're saying, Perfict, is you're saying that if he's using that definition of what is to be considered the gender role of women, that he would also have to be principled and apply that same standard on what is defined as a man. Is that correct?
Yes, and then it would be a matter of if you allow that men who, for instance, had a low testosterone count or a low sperm count were able to use artificial insemination, then you're going to have to be allowing other medical for that sort of thing, in which case I can basically use your DNA, anyone's DNA, and make a sperm that will work. I'm not sure that they can do an egg that will work. Maybe they can do that too. Everyone would be a man and everyone would be a woman. Just crazy talk.
So what do you guys, Alex and Christy, what do you guys think? Would you guys agree with that assessment?
Well, first off, I mean, yes, the philosophical thing I agree is ridiculous that Sargon put forward. And I will say, the one thing Woodford did okay, I do agree that was the one thing Woodford did okay on. I've got a lot of problems with Woodford.
Yes.
That go well beyond that one thing, but no, that argument totally falls apart. And also the milkshake video is just comical.
Yeah, that was painful. Simply on the argument scale. I mean, the good arguments, bad arguments, and letting people get away with stuff. But the other problem with it is that what about women who have contributed their last egg? They've now gone through menopause. Are they not a woman anymore? What about someone who has got her fallopian tubes are blocked? She will never be transiting an egg from her ovaries to her uterus. She will be sterile. That's all there is. They're not a woman.
Yeah, if I can real quick add something quick. So one of the things and facets that I'm going to have to again, so they can't come back at us saying that we're being disingenuous, is one of the things that, like what you just mentioned, Perfict, is kind of like in similar connotations to what Woodford put out. And one of the things that Sargon put out was that he believed that they're like less of a woman, or the way he framed it is that these individuals they are feeling like he's like, if you asked this question to them, they would feel less than a woman. And then Woodford spun back saying, well, they're still women though. Even if they feel less as this, they still are defined as a gender role of a woman. And then that's kind of like that emphasis. So
yeah, the whole last half was on the definition of trans women or women, and Woodford very well clumsily, but again, I'm thinking he did well enough for what he understands, but he kept trying to trying to explain what trans women are women means, and Sargon was not having any of it because he kept conflating women and female, which is a dubious distinction to begin with.
Well,
I mean,
yeah, especially,
for fuck's sake, I'm XX, so.
But go ahead, Alex.
Oh, well, yeah, because, like, when you're talking about the social day-to-day, and this, by the way, pointing out this problem has gotten me blocked by TERFs before. Pointing out the day-to-day, like, there's a big difference between how you treat people day-to-day versus, you don't look into those distinctions. And then, wait, no, I can get blocked right for that. I can get blocked for something else. Something related to asking questions. I asked too many questions or something, and then there was a response and a block, like, right afterwards. It was one of those, like, response, go back to general beliefs. I'm going to restate my beliefs and then block you. Especially, that one was especially amusing. I know this is, like, way off topic, but that was minutes after she gave someone shit for blocking her, and then she blocks for, like, blocking her, and then she blocks me, like not that, just a few minutes later, because I apparently asked the wrong questions she couldn't deal with.
So,
that's the conversation I came in on, like, right at the end, right?
Possibly.
So, real quick, so I want to be fair also, on this. So what if we do this? I think that's an incredibly important topic that you brought up, Christy. I think one of the things I want to do is I want to come back to this also next week. So hopefully, I think, Alex, you said you watched it, but Perfict, you didn't see the second half, correct?
I didn't see all of the second half. I only saw part of the second
Correct.
half.
Okay, so how about Christy? Would it be fair? Would you welcome us? We've kind of approached this, but would you be amicable to next week we approach this again and allow them to watch it as well, so they can get their own? Would that be okay?
Absolutely, absolutely,
Okay, cool.
Absolutely, of course.
So go ahead.
Yeah.
I wouldn't make them suffer through it, but you know.
Well, no. I mean, did you have any? Like, do you have any final words?
It is their choice.
No, I don't want to be rude, but do you have any, like, final takes on that? You can share with me that they may not know about. Like, did you have any final words on the topic you brought up?
I think Sargon's too. One of the arguments that Sargon brought up was dogs fucking, which, okay, and I actually made a comment on this because I had a dog, a male dog, who would only fuck other male dogs. He would never go with a female. That was his thing. So even that argument falls apart. You know, he's trying to explain, you see homosexuality in nature, and Sargon was doing something strange with it. And he just insists that procreation is the be-all and end-all of life, and it kind of isn't. I mean, I have a better life than that, and I haven't had sex in coming on 19 years now.
Yeah, I completely understand the kind of like the example you just gave, because there are creatures in biology. Maybe Alex can confirm this for me, but there are creatures in biology that don't procreate in the way that humans procreate, and I think that's one of the issues I'm seeing on this. Maybe I'm wrong on this, but
well, I mean, obviously, lots of creatures don't procreate like humans do. Mushrooms definitely do. I can't remember if mushrooms. I think mushrooms are either both genders, or they might have three. They might have three sexes. I can't remember. I know, obviously, I can't remember if it is Komodo dragons or Gila monsters. I think it was Gila monsters. Were female Gila monsters. I want to say. One of those lizards clones themselves essentially.
Fascinating.
Birth without any sex. If there aren't a lot of other versions of the animal around.
Aren't there also some frogs, Alex, that also if a certain
frogs switch gender?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. So that there are frogs that do that.
Switch sex, I should say. I don't know their gender. And obviously bacteria are essentially clone themselves, and skin cells and all the cells in your a lot of the cells in your body are from pluripotent stem cells, which is why you have so many of them. But I mean, they also reproduce themselves, but they also come from pluripotent stem cells, and that's what causes bone and muscle to regenerate, because that breaks down for exercise. And I can't remember all the details about that, but
real quick, let's give Perfect.
Look how far we've gotten into this subject. It's not about biology. He said a biological marker on what his sociological acceptance will be, and everybody's willing to talk about biology.
Look,
biology simply isn't part of it.
I can to talk about biology. I've got a problem.
Fully understand that, yes.
Yeah, go ahead, Perfect.
It's not about...
No, it's not.
It's not about biology. What we're talking about here is a social consideration, and you're saying, I want biology. And you're like, the biological markers you've chosen are crazy. Even I'm willing to argue with them. Why are we talking about that? It simply doesn't matter.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, if we're gonna study primate behavior at all, looking at the bonobos especially, who are aggressively pansexual, and they do have males who take the female roles within the tribes. That's the wrong word. And it's sort of obviously can't ask them what gender they are, but if they're taking on gendered roles, then they're taking on gendered roles. And you can extrapolate from that. And if you want to go into biology, cool, because there's a lot of biology behind trans lives anyway. So it works on a number of levels, but it doesn't have to just be biology. Again, I'm an XX person, technically intersex, but I was well into transition before I found out about it. So, and I have 2 kids, one of them who is trans.
So real
they're
quick,
19 years.
Go ahead and finish up. I was just going to say, Christy. So I do want to continue this because I want to give everyone an opportunity to bring up their topics. I apologize, please don't take me rude, but I want to give everyone the opportunity to bring up the topics. But please go ahead and finish off what you were going to say about Christy.
Oh, I was just going to say, they're 19 years apart, so I wasn't exactly fertile, but I am XX, so there you go.
Gotcha. So I guess thank you for bringing that topic up, Christy. I think it was an important thing we'll also address next week's show, and hopefully we'll get a more nuanced approach from the other 2 co-hosts. I guess, do you guys, Perfict and Alex, do you guys have any topics you guys want to bring up?
I didn't really have a lot. Well, or I don't remember if I had put much thought into anything. I got distracted too much by watching the first half of that Sargon versus Rationality Rules video, and I couldn't stop thinking about there's a YouTube video. Every Dave Rubin episode ever. And that's what I kept thinking about when it was Sargon versus Rationality Rules, because they kept being like, I agree with that. And then, like, especially near the end, Rationality Rules is like, uses regressive. And he talks about the left a lot, and I'm not quite sure he actually says regressive left. I'd have to go.
He says it a lot.
Yeah,
he says regressive a lot.
Yeah,
he definitely says regressive a lot.
Yeah, see, for me, when I watched the first half, and if we're gonna hit this topic, because that's something everyone's watched, is that what you want to speak on, Alex? On the first video?
Oh, I just wanted to say that. That's all I have to say.
Oh, okay. Well, we can hit on that. We can stay on that.
Video.
No, but but everyone's here has seen the first video, so we can actually extend on that and have a discussion on it. So when I watched the first video, one of the things that I saw from that discussion, and this is the thing that poked me out, and again, everyone has a right to their opinions politically, but one of the things that I had this emphasis, and this is why I have my criticisms of Stephen Woodford, not comes from other facets, but because he clearly labeled himself when it comes to economics, he clearly labeled himself a person that tends to lean to the right. Again, if I'm wrong on that, anyone is more than welcome to correct me. But when I watched that, that's what he said, that when it comes to economics, he's on the right. But when it came to social issues, he's generally on the left. That's why he considers himself a moderate. Did you guys get that same take, or am I incorrect?
I didn't. I must have been the part I blacked out on.
What about you, Perfict and Alex? Did you guys get a chance to catch that or no?
I get the idea that he considers himself a moderate, and that he considered himself a moderate. More like the economic things and other things, but as well. But I got much the same impression.
Yeah. So
I don't remember exactly. I know I couldn't remember. I couldn't remember which thing he considered himself left on, and which thing he considered himself right on.
Yeah, so to try to paraphrase and try to still man again as best as I can, he said that when he came to social issues, he regarded himself on the left, but when it came to the economics, as I said, he considered himself on the right. Now, I don't know if he said that he did a video a while ago where he spoke against why he's not a libertarian in sense of why he has conflicts with criticisms of libertarianism. So I don't know if his politics on the right on economics is a libertarian facet, or maybe he's an anarcho-capitalist. I don't know. I don't know his political affiliation when it comes to the economics.
Whatever it is, he's wrong. No, just kidding.
One of the things that really irked me was when they both started attacking intersectionality, identity politics, and considering that. Well, first, the obvious thing, all politics is identity politics, period. I mean, there's not any that isn't. And intersectionality just means, okay, I'm a trans Hispanic, pansexual person in lower middle class. Those are four different things in which I have an identity. And my work is part of my identity, my music, my books, and all of those things go into how I perceive the world. So intersectionality just means everybody has an identity that is they keep calling it collectivist, and that's what drives me fucking mad. Pardon me.
No, but if I can just add on that real quick, I understand your disillusion with that, because I also disagree with that notion. Because yes, in a sense, it is a form of unity, but it's based on the individual. Like you're unified based on our individual perspective. It's like one of the issues I have with when it comes to people who are theists, it comes down to the notion like they like to label all atheists as everything or a specific notion based on this common principle, but it's not the case. Like I'm an agnostic atheist. I'm an atheist, yes, but the reason I approach my non-belief came from a different perspective and a different philosophy than other people who consider non-believers. And what I would say is that same facet also applies toward this concept of unity. Your perspective, Christy, and your perspective, Alex, are fundamentally different from mine, but we do unify for a shared cause of promoting the general well-being of the trans community. And that's the only really unity there is. It's just that it's that shared experience that we're all going through the same thing in different ways. Do you agree? Do you guys agree or disagree?
Yeah, I think we're all atheists here too. I'm not sure.
Oh yeah, perfect. Perfect
I
is.
think so too.
So I guess the question is, for me, like kind of like to expand on that, if I can mention this. But one of the things in line with what you're saying is one of the key factors of this idea of this collective. Collectives are generally and sometimes are a good thing. Certain collectives aren't good,
Yeah.
but certain things are good in regards to a collective. And this is the other issue I have with this. If you are doing a collective based on irrational principles, harmful principles, then yes, you have a good criticism to have in regards to a perspective of a collective. But if a collective is doing it for a general principle of good, even if you have fringe elements doing some bad things, like if I can bring this up, like there was this recent sting-off by this group called, what are they called? Project Veritas. Like, yeah, well, this is going to be my topic, but I wanted to add this because it kind of tugs into this. But it's like these individuals, like this in Project Veritas, they exposed, I guess, some one individual who had like some really bad takes. Like he was like defending the gulags and all that stuff. And what they're trying to convey it as it's the general understanding and feeling of everyone that supports burning. And to me, this is one of the biggest problems I have when it comes to social media rhetoric, is I hate generalization. Generalizations are useful to a point, but I hate when people generalize the ideas of one person to equal to the entire demographic. And that's a huge problem for me. And I think the same thing that Sargon is doing regarding to what you mentioned, Alex, is happening here. Is basically he's generalizing what's going on with this one characteristic to apply to the entire whole, and it's frustrating for me. That was Christy who brought that up. I apologize if it was Christy.
It's all right. How about Alex?
Yeah.
Perfect. I've been talking a lot, so I'm gonna shut up a little bit.
At least, say something. You have to now.
Well, they say something that he specifically was doing exactly that, and he did it over and over again, and was challenging him on it. That just gave him an opportunity to do it again, and he did it again, and Woodford would let him do it again, and not say. But what you're saying, he's saying that 73% all recognize village is a thing. That they feel that in this survey that it is something that exists. And therefore, since there's this unifying characteristic, absurd outlet where they feel that white people are evil and say that all of them.
Yes.
I can find somebody who would identify them as a group, and they have this opinion, say they all say that. Trade as if they all say that. That's objectionable, and it's objectionable in all issues.
Yeah, and I generally agree with you that, again, it goes into this conflation of two different facets. Like, for example, like I'm a social democrat when it comes to politics. Can I kind of tie into my topic? Is that okay with you, everyone here?
Sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
So
Yeah.
this kind of goes into
Please.
the trans representation, this topic that you kind of like wanted to address. Kind of like all three have overlap, like you mentioned on social media in our earlier discussion this week, Christy. But one of the big things that I saw, kind of like the tie into this, is in regards to what happened recently in the Democratic debate. I don't know what everyone's support structure is. I don't know if everyone here is a supporter of Warren, Biden, Sanders, I don't know. But one of the key issues I have that recently happened with the debate is, again, I may get blasted for this, but for me, I think that what happened with Elizabeth Warren was incredibly bad faith. And the reason why I have this opinion comes down to the notion that through all this evidence, all these merits we've seen of Bernie Sanders saying that women can be president, all of a sudden we're going to automatically assume that he's now this secret misogynist or sexist when we have a mountain of evidence that prove counterwise. And then I'm not saying, see, for me, my take on this position is I think that the discussion that happened between Sanders and Warren during that private discussion was taken out of context. I think that's what it boils down to. Like that basically Elizabeth Warren heard a certain thing and she may have misconstrued it on what he was actually saying. That's what I think actually happened. And now that she's running with this, it's painting her in a bad light. And I didn't want that to happen to Elizabeth Warren. I don't support her publicly, but I do respect her on her achievements. But at the same token, I just really think this is a really bad faith thing that she did towards Sanders. I'm pretty sure people are going to disagree with me here.
Well,
I'm a Warren supporter, and I will more or less agree with you, probably for different reasons. So, go, Alex. Sorry.
I'm a Bernie supporter, so
we have a mixed bag here.
I just I think what Warren did was bad, but I think what CNN did was worse.
Yeah, I agree with you. Absolutely.
I think what CNN did was just put extra pressure. CNN did bad faith questions.
Yes.
Well, do you guys know that the person that runs the debates for CNN is actually was a GOP strategist for like 10 years?
I wouldn't think that mattered.
Yeah, so the person that's currently running the debates for CNN and doing the coverage for the Democratic candidacy is a Republican.
I don't think that matters, actually.
I disagree.
If they do their job well, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna side more with Christy on this because there are plenty of people who ultimately it didn't matter. When as many problems as I have with the CIA guy who went against Trump, like he's a Republican too. Like you can. The party you have, what matters is what you value more, ethics, the ethics you believe in, or your party.
The on MSNBC, the one show I do not miss, I actually have a DVD for every day, is Deadline White House, which I refer to. Nobody in my house knows what it's called because I just refer to it as the Republicans bitching about Trump hour.
Real quick. I just want to make sure, real quick, so before we can go on to that part. But Perfict, did you have any feedback in relation to like my topic?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of ways I can see somebody like Bernie Sanders. Thing where King is, I'd really like to see a woman president, but there's no way we can let that woman be president. And then they've said, there's no way we can let that woman be president. And it sounds like they're not wanting that person to be president because they're a woman. And
I'm
you
pretty sure that's what
can
happened.
see where that can happen.
Yeah, for me, the way I think that, but again, maybe my take is incorrect, but the way I observed it is basically if this actually, again, I'm not a mind reader, I wasn't there, but from my understanding of what I would interpret from the evidence, that what I think happened in the discussion is like Bernie Sanders said, yeah, I don't think a woman can be elected in our environment or our system, political system, because it's incredibly misogynist, it's incredibly sexist. And I think that's what he may have actually said, and that may have been miscued. Maybe people disagree with that.
And I think there's
Sorry, go on.
So I just think there may be a little bit of leftover side eye because of the way he acted during the end of the last election. Just pre-convention and during the convention, which was not good.
Like, what do you mean? Like, can I ask what do you mean by that, Christy?
He did the sore loser thing pretty heavily. When Hillary Clinton lost to Barack Obama in the primaries, she was the one who stood on the floor and put the New York delegation over the top. And Bernie had his brother just vote for him instead of and just sat there sulking, which, I mean, it looked like he was sulking. I can't say that's what he was actually doing, but that's what it looked like. And I don't think that was the way to go. And that I actually think that hurt Hillary in the long run.
You're talking in the 2008 with before Obama became president.
Well, yeah, I'm contrasting the two things, the 2008 and the 2016.
Gotcha.
The way Bernie acted at the convention, I think hurt Hillary in the long run.
Well, I'm going to have to respectfully disagree, and here's why. Even if that was the case, Bernie literally rallied for Clinton like 30 plus times in regards to trying to raise up support. So it's possible, like what you observed is correct, but for me, I'm also have to weigh in that he actively promoted her many times, and there was a recent thing I saw on Twitter where someone even mentioned that Bernie Sanders promoted Hillary Clinton way more times than Hillary Clinton went to the Midwest. There were times where Bernie Sanders went to the Midwest more than actually Hillary Clinton did. See, for me,
sure.
And for me, it's possible, like you said, what you observed is correct. But for me, it's like, I don't know. I think there's a little bit more nuance to it than just that. I don't know.
I absolutely think there's more nuance to it, and I'm trying to be trying to be charitable as possible. And I don't think the rallies mean as much unless they're televised. And there was a lot of other things that happened in 2016. The way Trump was very much able to attract the cameras more than Hillary was.
Yeah, but I mean, I think also people are genuinely tired of the wage gaps, of just the candidates who don't seem to care about the people anymore as much as the corporations, and they were sold on Trump's bullshit that he was not that way, and he was also he was everything that he was everything for the poor, but also everything for the rich conservative values or whatever. He tried to be everything for everyone, and he succeeded on showing that. And some people just assumed he wouldn't win because they didn't understand why there were people who liked him because they're desperate for someone who's not who they perceive, I should say, they perceive Trump as not being sucking up to the stock market, and
He was doing a lot of
obviously
populist
he
rhetoric.
was. What?
He was doing a lot of populist rhetoric.
Yeah, and Hillary was just like Hillary was overconfident in the 2016 election. She was very much, I got this, and also Hillary was everything a lot of people couldn't relate to.
Yeah, so I generally I agree with you, Alex. And again, this is all based on our, of course, unique perspectives. But at the end of the day, I think the important factor is we do need unity. We need to find some common ground. This is one of the reasons why I hate, during the primary season, I hate the primaries because it pits some of the greatest leaders on the left in politics against one another. And it's like, especially if you have two candidates very similar to Sanders and Warren, it muddies the water. You know what I mean? It just gives nothing more than arsenal for the opposing side in regards to politics to use as some form of flack against their opponents for the prime or for the general election. So that's just my take. But I guess Perfict. Do you have any last points on this before we go on to your topic? If you have one.
No real last points on this topic. Maybe kind of a throwback at this point.
Gotcha.
I want the being applied to trans people, the no true trans people, where they try and set up a which is self-supporting, usually using the biology.
So you're talking when the original subject of the transmedicalism? Is that where you're kind of bringing it up again?
It sort of ties back to that, yes. But where people try and do the gatekeeping with no true, they're trying to say what is a true and what is not a true.
Would you guys generally agree that the transmedicalist viewpoint can be seen as a form of no true Scotsman? I'm pretty sure that's where you're getting at. Perfect. Do you, Christy and Alex, do you guys think that also applies in regards to that?
I was at a meeting of trans leftists. I was at a trans leftist meeting in a bookstore. I met my friend's wife, and my first thought was, she's not even trying. So I know I have some of this because of, I'm guessing it's because of my age, but some of this in the back of my head, and I hate that I have it because it's not the way I feel in general, but I have the flashes of, and the no true Scotsman is a way that people just they try how to create a group identity when it's that rigid, and what I was doing was rigid and transmedicalist, and well, not medicalist, but passing and all of that. The way people try and group together, they want everybody to be part of the group in the way they are, and this is where intersectionality also comes in, because nobody is all of the things that someone else is.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a lot that they're talking about. That people, they try and apply a homogeneity to trans people, that all trans people are leftists. All trans people must be Bernie supporters. If you aren't a Bernie supporter, then you aren't really a trans person. You're just pretending.
Yeah, and I will just say that, I kind of agree that, or at the very least, it seems to be, from my perspective, also a nurture Scotsman fallacy going on. but also I have definitely had those sorts of flashes of that attitude before. So you're not alone with that, Christy. And I think it's just, well, at the very least for me, I think it's just a projection of all the time where I felt lost, and for them to be okay with that, or seem okay with that, at the very least on the surface, it just makes it seem like everything they do is easier. I don't know. I feel like it's a lot of things, and I don't know all the reasons for that thought process, but it has popped into my head. It does pop into my head occasionally. Worst so if I happen to be on Tinder. That's why I feel the worst for having that attitude.
Oh my God! Yes.
If this is going to be shocking, I've never been on Tinder, to be honest with you. Because I'm very.
I started a week ago.
Yeah,
I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, because see, for me,
I might have a couple of friends play some board games because of it. Sorry.
No, see, for me, I'm kind of a recluse because of my PTSD. It's like I'm not trying to play victim mentality here, but for me, I'm a recluse, so I'm very solitude in regards to who I am, and it's I have a hard time getting out and about, and I guess that it kind of we're gonna have to have the discussion on that at a future time, Alex, in regards to that experience, but. Well, let's do this. Do you think that we covered what you mentioned? Perfect. Did we cover it pretty fairly?
Yeah. I was just. I'm interested. People's perspective specifically is on the idea that I think it's that people are, as a group, trans people work very hard to try and build community, and then there's people within the community work very hard to create division. And it just seems odd.
I agree. It's very. Go ahead, please.
This is one of those things where. Sorry, Christy. I still haven't read the other thing you linked me. That I forgot that. I forgot what you linked me. The exact name of it. I've got notes. I'm sure it's on my phone somewhere. So I'm going to go back to social identity theory because that's the thing I've actually read.
Okay.
With how people, what makes someone trans, what people view is what makes them trans, and I think that might be why, on some level, depending on who they talk to, they just don't feel like they connect with the reasoning for transitioning, and I think that might cause them to kick everything out. Kick the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. Because I don't think I don't like the idea of putting. Nobody is in the motive to do something that's going to harm themselves, or very few people are. Sorry, if you're in the right mood, you're in the motive to do something to harm yourself. But I think I tend to be on the assumption that people are looking for a way to connect, looking for a way to describe who they are, and if they not everything about being transgender is easy to explain, and so I think people get weird ideas in their head. And so this isn't me. I am this other version of this that's similar, but that isn't me, and it just creates complication. And I don't know.
Yeah,
and we get that too. It's not something that we don't go through too. It's like, okay, this person isn't part of my group either. This person doesn't understand me. Which is fine, because it's one of those things everybody does. But even in the trans community, for instance, I can't conceive of a trans person voting for Trump, and yet I know two of them who are.
Yeah, especially with the trans ban that he instituted. I have an issue with that too. But please continue, Christy. I just wanted to add that. I apologize.
Oh no, it's fine. As a matter of fact, one of them just retired from the military, and I'm like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" You know.
Yeah, but to be fair, I also have to. I can also look at it that they may have if they're a veteran, and this is again something I wish. This is my own critique of the left. Is I wish more leftists would appeal toward the veteran community. And this is again, I did a video on this again a while ago. But like one of the things that I wish that people would do, especially on the left, and I'm not saying that some people don't, but I think there's a disconnect when it comes to the nuances in the communication and the talking points that really demonstrate how leftist politics do align with a lot of the notations of what it means to be a veteran. Like when it comes to our benefits, when it comes to our identity, when it comes to self-defense, most of the people I've ever experienced in my life as being a veteran in a veteran community generally are against war. They believe in self-defense and defending the American interests, but they don't generally agree with Americans attacking a foreign country for no reason. And I think those sentiments can be shared on a leftist space that hopefully more and more people can start, expanding on that notion. But let's do the wrap up here, guys. It's been a great discussion. If we've missed anything here, if any of the co-hosts feel like we've missed any opportunities on the topics we've covered, feel free to hit me up or hit anybody else up, and we'll try to cover them for next week's show. But I want to give and I want to make sure everyone here has a great opportunity to promote themselves. So who wants to go first?
Okay, I'll go first.
Okay, go for it, Alex. What do you got going in the next week or so? Do you have any projects working on or any plans?
I kind of want to go and make a video making fun of the whole rationality rules and the Sargon of Akkad thing, because I found the first thing funny. I really want to make fun of that because I don't know, and also hopefully the humor will just brighten people a little bit of that terrible conversation.
And where can we find you? As always, all Alex's stuff is in the description tab below of this video for anybody who watches in the future. But you're still active on Twitch, Alex, and you have 2 channels? Is that correct?
Yeah, I've got 2 YouTube channels. I kind of want to do like the silly stuff on my main channel, which I kind of just do whatever on, and then I have this podcast and other stuff is on my more serious politics channel, and I plan to have more serious videos in general on there.
Awesome. And please, and everyone, please, if you guys get a chance, whoever watches later on, please check out Alex's content. She has some great takes in regards to biology and a lot of other facets. So thanks for being here tonight, Alex. I appreciate your participation in the discussion.
Yeah.
And let's go with Christy, because I know Perfict. We'll get into Perfict real quick, but Christy, you still have your music channel. You still have your your regular YouTube channel. And are you on Twitch as well?
Yes.
Did I saw that?
I will be on Twitch. I do have a channel on Twitch, but I'm not going to advertise it yet. My regular channel is Christy Abbey on YouTube. That's where I do mostly interviews. I have Christiosity on Tuesday, coming up on Tuesday, which is going to be great.
Yeah, that's going to be. I'm going to look forward to that. I'm going to definitely watch that myself. But please continue, Christy. I apologize. I'm
gonna have Ozma on there soon, but we haven't scheduled anything yet.
Sorry about that. I don't think the schedule. You never hit me up on that.
I will do that. The Chris Abbey music is a little bit fallow lately, but I'm going to put up a couple of new songs, a couple of new covers, and two new songs of mine up on there within the next week.
And real quick,
I guess
Christy,
it's going to be active again.
I wanted to bring this up. You also mentioned earlier, before we started going live, that because you have also a band for people of representation of the trans community. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah. Well, I have a band called Suspicious Human. I haven't put up any video of that yet. I have an unlisted just audio thing, which you know what, I'm gonna list it. What the heck?
Yeah, please make sure you share that with me, Christy, because I remember you mentioned it, and I know we spoke about it on last show. I want to just give you the opportunity to plug your whatever you're working on, so everyone gets an opportunity to get to know you. So,
well, right now I'm working on a concept album, which the band was a little angry with me because I said I might get another group to do it, because I didn't want to dump a whole bunch of songs on them all at once, and they're like, well, you're the songwriter, you should do it. Okay, so this is confusing, I'm sorry, but yeah, Suspicious Human is the name of my band. We have a Facebook page, but I haven't seen it yet, so
and just make sure you pass that on to me, Christy, and I will be happy to add that to the description tab so everyone can get a reference to that later on, even at a later date. So.
Oh, absolutely. I will probably start giving you different links, some of my more obscure links later as we get in. Like probably next week, you're going to get a whole bunch of the different links. My first album, for instance, from 1992, is actually online for free.
Is that going to be on like Audible, or is that, do you know what? Like,
no, it's on its own page, and it's just all free.
Okay, cool. So I guess any projects you're going to be working on, except you said you mentioned Christiosity, and anything else, or?
Yeah, Chrissy, I'm interviewing Christiosity this week. Jesse Gender or Jesse Earl. Hopefully next week. We have a date set, but I don't remember it offhand. And after that is she calls herself L with the T on Twitter, but she does these really elaborate leftist videos that last, like long plays. They're like an hour and 40 or something like that. And, my brain is absolutely melting trying to remember who it is, what her actual name is, and because I'd like to promote her. She's amazing.
Yeah, I was going to mention something.
So I've got three amazing women coming up.
Well, if I can just mention this, Christy, as a suggestion. I know you play music. I've seen you pictures of you playing guitar. I have actually not seen the music video. I'm going to be honest with you. But one of the things I was going to recommend to you is, if you're going to do a Twitch thing later on, a huge portion of what makes up gets really a lot of popularity on Twitch is music players. So if you ever want to be a musician, that's one of the facets I would recommend, especially if that's your forte. If you're willing to perform on Twitch, I think it would help your platform grow immensely, because there's a lot of people that do this, and they have a good following behind them. And of course, it overreaches to other parts of social media. Just a suggestion to you. I think that would be a great avenue for you to pursue.
I've got a good mic right here, so yeah, I have no problem doing that.
But yeah, so definitely check it out. There's like a whole section of music on Twitch that you can actually see them doing that. So, and then Alex has got the gaming part pretty solid down, right, Alex?
Yeah, except I've been doing shit at I've been doing shit at League of Legends recently, so yeah, I'm disappointed in myself. I need to figure out how to carry a team. No, look, I'm not going to go into League of Legends. I could talk way too much about League of Legends, and I'm the only person here who would care about it.
Well,
I think. Perfect.
I'm not
Do you
really
care about League of Legends?
I'm interested in whoever I'm interested in the people I like's interests.
Yeah,
How's
you know
that?
me. You know me, Alex. I've had a discussion. I'm like not a big fan of MOBAs, but
Yeah.
I'm always we always have good discussions relating to it. But let's be. I want to be again fair. Perfect. You still don't have anything up. Is that correct?
Nope, nothing to promote. So if people just take whatever good thing they're already doing and do it with renewed enthusiasm.
Oh, I do want to plug you on one way, Perfect. The way I met Perfect is I met him through the ACA Discord. Of course, you can have your criticisms of the ACA in general, what have you. But Perfect has you have what 3 different Discord servers you generally are around. Is that correct, Perfect?
Yeah, that's good number. Yeah.
So if you want to like ever hit him up, Perfect has some great takes, even if you disagree, what have you. But if you want to hit him up, that's how I met him. So again, I'm not trying to put you out there, Perfect, but if anybody wants to have a discussion in regards to your opinions, I think that's a great avenue to pursue if they ever want to have a discussion. So.
Oh yeah, they can find me there.
And of course, my name is again Rod Clark. I run a YouTube channel. I do random videos on my opinions under Malleus Odium, Rod Clark, and I'm also on Twitter. But I want to greatly thank everyone being participant yet again in episode 2 of the topic of transmedicalism. I think we covered it in a good portion. Of course, there probably could have been spots we could have missed. But if anybody who watches later on feels like we've missed something, feel free to hit me or any of us up, and they'll bring it to our attention, and we'll try to address it for next week's show. But thank you so much for everyone who watched, and you guys have a great night. Take care, guys.
Yeah, have a good night.
Bye.
Peace.